everybody, and welcome to another episode of Cinema Heroes. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm Jake Stu.
I'm Alex Thomas.
And today we're talking about Logan. Released in 2017. Directed by James Mangold. Everybody's got their copy. Written by James Mangold, Scott Frank, and Michael Green, from a story by James Mangold. And starring Hugh Jackman, Patrick Stewart, Boyd Holbrook, Stephen Merchant, Richard E. Grant, and introducing Daphne Keane. This was the third solo Wolverine movie, the second to be directed by James Mangold. And the first, I was going to say first X-Men film, but I guess Deadpool technically came out before this. But the first Wolverine movie to be rated R, which is what all of us Wolverine fans had kind of been wanting, a violent Wolverine film, and that is what we got. And this movie actually got an Academy Award nomination for Best Adapted Screenplay, which is pretty cool. So, Alex, I know you've been dying to talk about this movie, so let's hear your initial thoughts when you saw this movie for the first time.
My initial thoughts are the same thoughts that I have today. One of the greatest superhero movies ever made, hands down. Argue with the wall. This movie means a lot to me. Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, to me, is like Michael Keaton for you, Justin. I grew up with this man. I was 10 years old when the first X-Men movie came out. Loved it. Loved the second one. Even loved the third one. And then, it gets really hit or miss after that. But this movie right here, man. This right here. The piece de resistance. A1 prime rib. This is what superhero movies should be. Comic book movies, whatever you want to call it. Like this is fantastic. After 17 years of playing the role, this is just so good. So good.
Alex, do you concur?
I concur. It's definitely one of the greatest superheroes movies ever made, because what this movie does is that it's technically not a superhero movie. It's not.
It's a Western.
It's a Western. It's a road trip movie. It's all these different things with superheroes in it. And that's what makes it good. It's not a world-ending thing happening. It's not, the superhero villain of the week is trying to take over the city. No, it's none of that. It's about these characters dealing with these dynamics they have to deal with, and we're on this ride with them. That's what it is, and it's a very simple story, but it works. And the acting, the Hugh Jackman as this character, like you said, he's played this character now. It's going to be 24 years now he's played this character. But at this time it was 17, and man, he's obviously a different Wolverine than he was in those previous movies. But watching this movie, I was always a testament that he should have been Joel from The Last of Us. Playing his game, he should have just been Joel. Why didn't they just hire this man to be Joel? But I agree with everything John said. And the word of Stephen A. Smith is blasphemy if you guys do not think that this movie is one of the greatest superhero movies ever made. It is, man. This is, and like I said, this is a damn near masterpiece. I have a little bit things I wanted to talk about. Obviously, we'll get into it. But it's damn near a masterpiece for sure.
Yeah, it's an intimate, character-driven superhero movie. Yes. There's not a whole lot of characters in it. It's not a bunch of fan service. It is about these three characters, and it's really about coming to terms with death. And watching it now feels a little bit different than when I watched it when it first came out. Because Alex, you what, 30, 31 now? Yeah. So when you hit a certain age, your mortality, you become aware of your mortality. Not to get too dark and too morbid, but you become aware of your mortality. And watching this movie now hit a little different. And it's almost, I guess you could say this for all movies, but this movie in particular is like watching poetry, just told through the lens of comic book characters, beloved comic book characters that we all know and love. But this is a beautiful movie.
Yeah.
Through and through.
It also works because when you talk about mortality, someone like Wolverine, who's been alive since as long as he's been alive, he's been through
probably like the mid 1800s.
Technically,
yeah,
he's been through everything technically, So yeah,
and I agree with you guys, and I think I read a quote today from James Mangold, and it was talking about why he pushed for the R rating so hard, and it wasn't necessarily to be able to include the violence and to be able to include the language, which he did, but it was basically telling the studio and telling the audience that we're not making this movie for children, and by doing that, they can have these more kind of introspective scenes, and they can have kind of these themes about facing death and old age and things like that, and the pacing can be a little bit different because this is a movie made for adults, not made for it's not the spectacle type of film that superheroes have really kind of become, and were even up until this point. And so I do think it's definitely a Western. I definitely agree with that sentiment. It's got the reluctant hero having to save the kids, and it's really, really well done and a fantastic film. And like you said, it's beautiful at the same time. I watched it for the first time in black and white when I watched it for this, and gorgeous. Watching it in black and white. At first I was like, I don't know if I feel like I'm gonna be missing something by watching it in black and white, but it was beautiful. And then I've got it on right now and it's in color and it almost looks weird. It's almost like I want to pop in the other disc and watch it in black and white.
The noir version, it to me is the definitive version of the movie. Watch this movie in black and white. It is, oh my God, it's so good. It matches the aesthetic perfectly.
Yeah.
I'm happy that the 4K actually comes with the 4K has a separate disc for that as well. Like it's a separate disc. On the 4K.
Yeah, that's how the Blu-ray is too. Yeah.
The Blu-ray. Yeah, they both come with a black and white version. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and I love that.
Because when I got this, I was worried that they were gonna put the black and white version strictly on the Blu-ray and not the 4K.
Right.
But both versions, both the Blu-ray and the 4K have a black and white version. So you got four versions of this movie.
You technically got 4 discs in there. You got 4 discs in that one package.
That's good. And, talking to Stu, you called it one of the best superhero movies ever made. It is almost weird calling this movie a superhero movie. Yes, it's based on a comic book, but it really doesn't feel like a superhero movie. It's so character driven. And there's not very many, there's only I guess if you count the kids, there's quite a few more, but there's really only 3 mutants for a while. It's just Caliban, Xavier, and Logan. And the rest have pretty much been wiped out. It's a dark future. And so it's obviously feels much different than any of the other X-Men films or any other superhero movies, really. So, yeah, it is one of the best superhero movies ever made, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like a superhero movie.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way a little bit about Captain America: Winter Soldier. When I watch that, sometimes I forget I'm watching a superhero movie because it feels, it's a political thriller just told through the lens of Captain America. And this is the same way. This is a Western drama just told through the lens of Wolverine.
Right.
Yeah, I like to say the top 3 superhero movies that you can say that if you take the character out, it'll still be a really good movie is this, Captain America: Winter Soldier, and obviously The Dark Knight. Those are the top 3 movies superhero wise that if you take the superhero out of it and just put like a regular Joe Smo or Smo Joe, whatever, it's the movie doesn't change just because it has Captain America or Batman or even Wolverine. If you literally say this is just a guy dealing with what he's going through and he has to take this girl to this place and he's getting and then all this stuff is happening, the movie will still be the same.
Yeah, you could throw Matt Reeves' Batman in there as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. But yeah, it's weird how when I first watched this movie, is because we always talk about the X-Men movies, like the timelines, like where does this take place and stuff like that. And I love that you don't have to really look at this and be like, oh, when does it take place? Because obviously it has to be after Days of Future Past, or it has to be after a certain time when they fix the timeline, or it doesn't even take place in any of those timelines. But I think for me, you can still watch it and not have to worry about, oh, when does this take place?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, they flat out give a year in the movie, and I almost wish they didn't. I wish it had just kind of been like the first X-Men film where they said like the not so distant future. Yeah. But they flat out say it's 2029 in this film. But I mean, it's like you said, I watched this movie and I don't really think about Days of Future Past. Like it feels separate. It's it's the same actors playing the same characters, but it does not feel like it is part of that universe, really. It's such a different film. And
they even nod certain things too. Like I think they talk about I remember there was a line when they talked about the Statue of Liberty. I'm like, okay, they're talking about the first X-Men, but it's
first X-Men, yeah.
It's like, does that really count? I mean,
they said that before this movie came out, they said that it was going to be in its own universe, but like you said, they acknowledge the first X-Men movie. So I would like to think that this is in line with those first three. And then, once it gets to Last Stand, they kind of branch off. Like it goes kind of like how the Halloween movies are. Like that weird web of movies,
sequels and stuff.
I could see that. I could definitely see that for sure.
I could almost see them ignoring. I mean, X-Men 2 is so good, but I could almost see them just ignoring everything other than the first film. You know what I mean? Like,
I can see it.
You watch X-Men, then you watch Logan. It's just
I mean, it makes sense because obviously we know all the mutants have been wiped out. Besides which ones that exist in this movie, most of it has been knocked out. So it's like, you can say, just watch the first X-Men and then watch this movie.
Yeah. How do you guys feel about Stephen Merchant as Caliban?
I like Caliban. I like him way better than the other Caliban.
X-Men Apocalypse Caliban.
Yeah, X-Men Apocalypse Caliban.
I'm not super familiar with Caliban, the character. I did read that he does apparently talk in the third person. So technically the X-Men Apocalypse one kind of got that right, because in X-Men Apocalypse, he always referred to himself as Caliban. But I really like this version of Caliban. I think he's just a really interesting character, and I like the dynamic with him and Logan, and the whole like not being able to go outside thing in the sunlight. And then it's very cool. And how his mutant power is like that he can track mutants, and so he does it when he gets kind of captured by the bad guys. He does it, but he's also not really giving them all the information and making sure that they're still kind of a step ahead and everything. I really liked the way the character was written in this movie. I think it was it worked really well. Yeah.
Absolutely. Are you familiar with the source material, Justin or Alex? Because I haven't read Old Man Logan.
I haven't read Old Man Logan either. I've seen photos and clips and stuff, and I've listened to certain people talk about Old Man Logan. When this movie was coming out, I knew they were adapting from at least that storyline. But I kind of like how they kind of do their own thing. Like I don't think it's like really taking that much from the comic.
Right. Kind of inspired by, but not really a direct adaptation by any means.
Right. Which I'm glad they did that.
Kind of like Days of Future Past.
Right. It's a comic I've always wanted to read, but I never did get around to it. So
because there are other characters in Old Man, like Hulk and Hawkeye. They're all in Old Man Logan. But
I think James Mangold just kind of was attracted to the idea of an Old Man Logan and like an aging Logan that isn't able to heal, and also the idea. I don't know if in Old Man Logan it's the idea of like the adamantium is poisoning his body, basically.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's I don't know if that was something they did for this movie or if that was from the comics, but I thought that was a pretty interesting take.
Yeah, and the fans have been wanting an Old Man Logan movie for quite some time. I think ever since X-Men Origins Wolverine came out, they wanted to do, like, people wanted Old Man Logan. But I'm glad, like, this movie came at the right time. We had to earn this movie.
Yeah.
I'm glad that we got
the
Wolverine, and I'm glad that we got Days of Future Past. I'm glad that we got to see more nuance with the character before we got to Old Man Logan. Like, this is one of the best developments of a character over a franchise that I have ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I agree.
I agree too, and I think you're right. I think we had to earn it, and if this movie had come out back in 2006 or whatever, like right after Last Stand or something, it just wouldn't have hit the same,
right?
And I don't think it would have been this movie. It would have obviously been different, but I agree. Being with the character for 17 years definitely makes this movie hit a little different. So.
I mean, with both characters, because you got Patrick Stewart in here too. The fact that he's
exactly
as well, and seeing how
I love their relationship in this movie. Oh my god,
yeah, it's like a father son dynamic. Like he's
a dad. It's definitely a dad
messing
movie
with his
for
old
sure.
dad. His old dad is just so irritating, but he ain't got no choice but to take care of him.
And that that's another thing that I resonated with me. Because my mom lives with me, and it's tough seeing your parents get older, and see watching this movie, having experienced some of the things that Wolverine is experiencing with Professor X, this movie really tugs at your heartstrings.
It's a very interesting dynamic. And it's very tragic to see Professor X like this. The fact that he has seizures. And when he has seizures, he literally paralyzes the entire city or whoever's in his vicinity. He literally
whoever's in his
them.
Immediate vicinity, yeah.
Like he
paralyzed that's how the X-Men died. He killed everybody in the mansion because he spazzed out.
I literally just passed the scene where he had a seizure in Vegas. And as they're leaving the casino, you see the ambulance pull up and stuff. It's like, okay, everyone is freaking out. And they had to call 911 to come to the casino because he didn't take his pills. Like, but at the end of the day, he's still human, even though he's a mutant,
When it hits Logan, he's down on the street level and they're up in the room, it's like, and he has to work his way up there.
He's the only one strong enough to do it,
right?
I would assume that like that whole psychic seizure, or like I guess it, like, I would assume that it reaches out for a few miles.
I
feel like it's got quite the reach, because that's why he's in that like tank or whatever in the beginning of the film, because even in that tank it hits Caliban, who's outside of the tank.
Outside,
exactly.
Right. And that's the whole reason that they're trying to get the Sunseeker, or whatever the boat is called, because they want to be out on the ocean and away from everybody. So that way when he has these seizures, Logan, obviously it's not fun for Logan, but he can kind of get through it. And that way they're out on the water and they're not affecting anybody else.
Right.
Well, they'd be affecting the animals, but the fish, the fish will get it.
They'll provide food for him, I guess. They'll just pop up and Logan will scoop them out. But yeah, I guess, that's, I think Logan is aware that Xavier's days are numbered, and he wants him to, he doesn't want to keep him in that little, that tank for the last few years of his life. He wants to at least be able to let him be on the boat and kind of be somewhat comfortable and at peace at the end of his life, Unfortunately, that does not happen for Charles.
Right.
No. Before we get to that, we got to talk about Daphne Keene as X-23.
Laura /X-23.
Laura. I love Laura. She is awesome She like she really is like I get what they were doing. Like they wanted to put all of Wolverine's feral aspects and feral characteristics into this character without his, I guess, moral compass. And oh my God, I love it. I love it. She is pure rage, and I love it.
And Daphne Keane does an amazing job at it too.
Amazing.
I mean, like she, you buy it 100%. She doesn't feel like a kid acting and pretending to be angry or full of rage. She embodies it. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, it feels like it's come. It comes natural to her. Like the scene where she goes berserk for the first time. It's just she sells it. So
I
well,
love that scene. I love that scene.
That's a good scene too, because when Wolverine sees it for the first time and he's like, "What?"
And
it's like, that's what you do, buddy. You do the same thing,
right? That's how the movie opened. Like the movie opens with Wolverine just slicing people left and right.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about? I don't actually remember the character's name, but Boyd Holbrook's character. He's with the mechanical hand. What's his name?
I forgot.
I can't think of his name, but that's where I get into my negatives, I guess.
Yeah.
It's the villains or the bad guys per se. They are the weakest point of this movie. I kind of wish there wasn't.
They are
like a bad guy kind of in this movie, but I guess you got to have them have conflict throughout the movie. So that's what they're for.
Yeah, right.
It's got to be somebody chasing Laura.
It's got to be something chasing them, right, for them to, while they're getting to where they need to be.
Pierce, that's his name, Pierce.
Yeah, I really did not enjoy his character. He was the weakest point of the movie. And yeah, I really didn't enjoy him I really didn't enjoy his character.
So in my opinion, he's kind of the flip side of the coin of Daphne Keane, because Daphne Keane is somebody who, well, pretty much everybody in this movie, I just believe, like it doesn't, like they just do such a good job. And Boyd Holbrook is not necessarily a bad actor. No. And I don't know if it's just me, but I can just tell that guy is acting. I can just tell that he is pretending to be this Southern evil guy. And I don't buy it. But James Mangold, I guess, likes him because he put him in Indiana Jones too.
Hey, man, I think I'm the odd man out on this. I like Boyd Holbrook.
Well, and I was gonna say it might just be me. It might just be, I just might be able to just kind of tell or whatever. But like, I don't buy. Like I said, it's not a bad performance. It just doesn't ring true to me.
Yeah,
it just feels like an actor pretending.
I can agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, he's the weakest out of the movie, but like, look at the performances around him. I mean,
yeah.
But I feel so that, I mean, it's a nitpick, because I don't think his performance is like I said, it's not a bad performance. It
doesn't drop me for giving it, like I said, it's damn near a masterpiece. It doesn't kill the movie for me, but
right, exactly. It's not like it doesn't make me like want to turn the movie off or anything. I just think I'm not the world's biggest Boyd Holbrook fan, and so I kind of wish that maybe they had cast somebody else in that role, but other than that, I mean, that's probably one of my only negatives really to say about the film, because even Richard E. Grant I really like, who plays Rice, I think his name is. I liked his performance, and he's not like a menacing villain or anything, but he is obviously not a good dude. Experimenting on all these children and everything, and he's the reason mutants have been wiped out. And so I like his character, and Boyd Holbrook is basically just the muscle for that guy.
Right.
But I do kind of wish I kind of agree with you, Alex. I do kind of wish there was maybe just a little bit stronger of a villain in this film. Well, I guess there technically kind of is, but he's like he's the muscle for the muscle.
Right.
And I think if he hadn't been in the film, and we're of course talking about, I think they refer to him as 24.
Yeah, X24.
Which is the Wolverine clone. if he hadn't been in the movie, then I definitely think there would have been a villain problem with this film. But because they have the young, and I think that was kind of genius to bring in like a younger Wolverine to fight old Wolverine, which was pretty smart.
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
I still remember, I obviously might as well talk about, since we brought up the character, when he puts his knives through Charles's chest. I gasped when that scene happened.
I did too.
Because I was like, wait, what? Like, this is where we're going with this film? Like, we are taking, and that's what I thought the first thing that came to my mind, I was like, we're taking risk? Like, this is even though we killed him before, but this is something like, you literally see the knives go through his chest and everything. And it's like, wow, so far we're taking a realistic tone. There's no like Phoenix thing going on or anything like that. But
right.
It's like, wow, like that really surprised me. And to see that it was in the hands of obviously Wolverine's clone, it was crazy to me.
Now I will say this: the scene prior to that, great scene, like just a great sequence of scenes. However, a dead giveaway that something terrible is about to happen. Whenever you see somebody sitting down and having dinner in the middle of the movie,
yes, yeah,
it's a wrap.
I'm on that scene right now.
Does that become a trope?
Like it's a little too happy.
If you haven't seen Game of Thrones season 3, episode 9, then I mean that tells you right there.
Is that the Red Wedding episode?
That's the Red Wedding episode. That's the Red Wedding episode, guys. If you guys have not seen the show.
That's funny. So go back to what you were saying about seeing the knives go into Charles's chest. Like Charles, yes, we saw Charles die technically in Last Stand, but like he's so much older and more frail in this film that just seeing him get stabbed in the chest like that. Yes. And then it breaks your heart. Like when Logan shows up and he's like, it wasn't me, he's like hoping to get to him before he dies. He's like, it wasn't, I didn't do this. It wasn't me, Yeah. It's just so it is heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking. Yeah.
And it's sad because he's the one that put him to bed. He's the one that put him to bed.
Right.
He's the one that he was the last thing he saw before he was gone,
I also love the moment with, Logan comes running into the house and he sees the clone version of him carrying Daphne out. And he's like, he's struck with a choice. He's like, do I go after him with Daphne or do I go check on Charles? And he ultimately decides to go check on Charles, which then finds Charles. Well, he finds, God, I feel so bad for that family too. Like you said, terrible things are going to happen. He gets to the top of the stairs, see the mom has been killed. The son got murdered. It's just, it's a brutal scene. Yeah.
It kind of feels like a horror movie.
Yeah.
A little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. This entire sequence is insane. Like it's insane.
This was supposed to be the final film for both. When Hugh Jackman basically said, he was retiring the character for him. Obviously Marvel was not retiring the character, but he was no longer going to play Logan after this movie. And Patrick Stewart said, you know what? Yeah, this is the final movie for Hugh Jackman. It's going to be the final Xavier performance for me. And that was not the case for either of them.
Right.
Patrick Stewart ended up coming back for a cameo in Doctor Strange. And then now we've got Deadpool 3 coming out with Hugh Jackman reprising his role, which I'm super excited about. But it does kind of lessen the impact of this movie.
Kevin Feige called him up, was like, hey, I need you just for a day. Like, just for a day. It's like,
here's
right,
$3
man.
bajillion.
Yeah, all right. All right. He called him, I need you for Secret Wars. Come on. This one scene.
Here's $5 bajillion.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting that, this was supposed to be their last film. And like you said, we've seen them come back. But that shows you that when people say that they're done playing the character, they're never really done,
It's true.
Especially when they still
same thing happened with, that's the whole reason that James Bond movie is called Never Say Never Again, because Sean Connery said that he was never going to play James Bond again. And then they talked him into doing that movie. So
But isn't Never Say Never Again isn't that like a Elseworld type Bond movie?
Yeah, kind of. It's not made by. It's not technically part of like the James Bond films. There was a weird rights issue with the Thunderball story. And so some other company made Never Say Never Again, which is basically just a remake of Thunderball. And it's separate. It's not made by MGM, and it's weird.
It makes me think, is it actually part of the set that I own? I might say, is it a part of the set that I own?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Wow.
Yeah, because it's like I said, it's not made by MGM, so it probably is not part of the set. I have it. I own that movie. I'm trying to find it. There it is. But I don't actually have it with the James Bond movies. I have it kind of separate because it's, not it, like you said, it's kind of an Elseworlds type film.
Kind of like this movie.
Yeah, I guess at this point, yeah.
I kind of like that we get these small moments with, Logan with this. I'm in the scene right now where he's with the family and he's, I guess, helping the father fix like a pipe or something like that. We're getting small moments like this.
Yeah.
Like I like these moments, like these character dynamic moments.
The calm before the storm, really, because
right.
24 is about to show up and everything.
Mm-hmm. And wreak havoc.
But that's like exactly what I think James Mangold was kind of talking about with making this an R-rated film. Is you can have, you have some of those moments, I guess, in regular superhero movies, but I really do feel like there's more of that in this film. There's like I said, it's more of a character-driven film, and yes, there's these big action sequences, but nothing is so big in this movie. It's not like you mentioned Winter Soldier, Stu, which is a political thriller, but then at the end you've got the I forget what they're called, but the floating
helicarriers,
the helicarriers,
that whole scene, and it's really big and epic at the end of that film. There's none of that in this movie. It's small scale, even though has like big kind of repercussions because of the whole mutant race and all that stuff. But it's just a guy trying to protect these kids. Really, it's all is what it kind of boils down to. And I love that about this film. And I do think if it had been a PG-13 film, I think maybe they would have had more pressure to cut some of those more introspective scenes out and to make something bigger and more epic towards the end of it, make it and I don't think it would have worked as well.
And I think another like kind of theme or message in the movie that's related to the theme of like death is like the mutants have kind of died out. Like they didn't really like wipe them out or obliterate them. They just kind of like people stopped mutating after a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy is trying to keep it going. The doctor, I can't remember his name.
Rice?
Grant. Rice, yeah. I was gonna say Grant's character. But he's because even he talks to Pierce and he's saying like I never disliked mutants. I just, I wanted to I saw the potential in them and I wanted to, control them. And he's trying to, keep it going, and just natural evolution is like, no, that's all, like the time of mutants is over, just let it be. And he's just trying to keep controlling it. So that kind of ties into the theme of death and acceptance and letting things be.
Yeah, and letting things go as well. Letting things go.
It's always interesting in movies when movies that are based on comic books have comic books in them of like the characters, And so I found it interesting that in this movie there were X-Men comics, basically, that they had made comics of Wolverine and his, we see a panel in one of the comics of Colossus pushing Xavier in a wheelchair, and then he finds out that the coordinates that Laura's nurse gave him were the same as in this comic book, which then makes him think that she was crazy and had gotten it all from a comic book and there was no Eden and all this stuff.
I'm glad you brought that up because I believe that this movie does the best job of that, like the whole like meta aspect, incorporating the comics into a comic book movie. I think it does a fantastic job with that because it shows the audience how important the X-Men were to their particular universe, to their particular world.
Right.
And it's kind of fan servicey, but for me it
serves a purpose.
Yeah, it serves a purpose because the idea of that is legacy. And legacy ties into acceptance and death and all of that. Like all of it is for a purpose. All of it makes sense. So I thought that was the best example of that.
Yeah, and I would agree. I think sometimes it can be silly. I can't really think. There's one. It's kind of spoilerish for the show Smallville, but there's a Smallville comic in Smallville and later on in the show, and you're kind of like, wait, what? And
what?
But like this movie, it works like you said, and I think it does serve a purpose in it. And I like the idea that the world, or a portion of the world at least has a view of who Wolverine is, and he's very much like, that's not me. It's just he's that's comic book made up stuff.
Yeah, he said. And I also kind of maybe a quarter of it happened, and none of it happened like this.
Yeah.
And you can even go further with it and think that like some of the movies we've seen were based on those comics.
Yeah.
And so this movie is kind of outside of that, which I think really kind of works,
Yeah.
How do you feel about Marco Beltrami's score?
I love it. It. It's very
works very well for this movie.
Yeah, it's subdued for the most part because there are a lot of quiet parts. But I really love it when it gets to the action of the film. That there's I don't know what that sounded like, a harmonica or something.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what the sound is, but it sounds fantastic. It's like I don't know what it is, but
I noticed the music in the beginning of the film, like after his first fight with the guys who were trying to steal his tires off the limo, and he's like in the bathroom pushing the bullets out. I noticed the music in that scene, but then the rest of the movie, I just was so engrossed in the film that I didn't really pay much attention, I guess, to the music. It serves
and I think
the
that was
movie
on
very
purpose.
well.
Yeah, I think that was on purpose. You're supposed to. It's supposed to complement the movie.
Right.
We're so used to, especially with superhero movies, we're so used to the score being so pronounced and almost overpowering the scene. This score does its job. It just further immerses you in the story and complements whatever scene that it's in, so it goes unnoticed.
Right. And I was going to say, I think Marco Beltrami is very good at that, because I honestly couldn't probably like hum any bars of a Marco Beltrami score for you, but his music, I think, works in the movies that he's done. He's very good at complementing the film scenes and having good music, even though it's like almost subconscious. Like you don't really notice the music, but it's there and it's enhancing the scene, which I think is really good.
Yeah, that's the idea. Like Roger Deakins has a similar like philosophy when it comes to his cinematography. He says if someone's watching a movie that I worked on and they're talking about how beautiful the shot is, well, then I didn't do a very good job, because my job is to help tell the story, talk about the story, don't talk about how beautiful the shot is. So that's kind of what
we can't help
this.
We can't help that you're a great cinematographer. I mean,
exactly.
We can't help that. We're gonna talk about how great your shots are, because you do a great job with that, bro. Like,
you do a fantastic job. I'm sorry.
We're giving you props. Come on, man.
The adamantium bullet. How do you guys feel about the adamantium bullet? Because we've technically seen an adamantium bullet before in Origins, in X-Men Origins, and that's what makes Logan lose his memory. But in this film, it can kill Logan, and it is what kills X-24.
To me, I feel like
you guys might be conflicted about it.
I am, because it's like, it feels like it's a MacGuffin. It's like a MacGuffin type thing where it's like you need that one thing to take out him, like, because there's obviously no way to kill him. Like there's no way that Wolverine can stop him. I'm literally watching the scene where he's getting demolished by him, and the only way he gets stopped is because the guy rams him with the truck. That's the only reason what saves him. in this scene.
But that doesn't even stop X-24.
Right.
I mean, they pull him off that and he heals. So
exactly. I don't know, man. Like I said, I'm very conflicted. Like I said, they needed that in there just to take him out, because obviously he's unstoppable. He's like the Terminator.
Right.
So
I'm on board. I like the idea of him carrying it around because he's thinking about offing himself with it. But I do feel like I wish they had come up with a more creative way, perhaps, to take out X-24. It just, I'm a little conflicted about it too. Again, it's not a deal breaker. This movie is still amazing, but technically, like, especially, and granted, like I said, maybe we could kind of view X-Men Origins Wolverine as something that was based on the comic books that are in this movie, and didn't actually happen. But the fact that we've kind of already seen him be shot with an adamantium bullet and it didn't kill him, it just erased his memory, which is also stupid and ridiculous. I almost don't buy that he would be killed with an adamantium bullet. I don't know. I wish that had been a little bit different.
Also, maybe it's because he's getting older too. Like maybe that's another thing.
I was just getting ready to say that.
Add that in there, like, because he's a much older Wolverine, so maybe it will kill him. But it kills X-24 though. Like, he's
right. That's what I'm saying.
Wolverine
like
too,
I might be able to buy that it would kill Old Man Logan, but I have a hard time buying that it killed X-24.
Yeah. I get that. That's valid. I mean, it doesn't really bother me that much.
It's like I said, it's not a deal breaker or anything, but
yeah. And I very much like it better here than I do in X-Men Origins.
Yeah,
it's like you said, it's stupid.
Right. Yes. I do want to say this. It's just a little like Easter egg thing. I know you probably haven't watched it, Justin, but Alex, do you remember X-Men Evolution?
Yes and no. Like, not. If I saw, probably
so you
saw
know
an
of
episode,
it, but you didn't really watch it.
Yeah.
I know of it. I didn't really watch it either.
I watched it, but it's like it's not engraved in my memory. I guess you say the '90s animated one was more engraved in my head than the Evolution.
So there's a character, one of the kids, I guess like the leader, the boy. He was in X-Men Evolution. His name was Avalanche. He's from the comics as well.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
Yeah, so I thought that was a nice little nod to I won't say younger X-Men fans, but the kids that grew up in the 2000s.
Yeah.
Are we not gonna talk about Wolverine's death or his?
Oh, absolutely.
I guess we have to. Yeah. I mean, beautiful scene. Really, it's interesting, Stu. I hadn't really thought about it because his death in this movie. And granted, I'm just cold-hearted, but it doesn't affect me like it did you. I remember you talking about like when the first time you saw the movie that it just like, I think you said you cried. I can't remember, but
the whole theater was in there sniffling.
John, we didn't go see this together, did we?
No, we didn't. I went to go see this with my wife.
We saw this together. I don't think.
I saw this in California. This is one of the last movies I saw in California. Anyway, his death, beautiful scene and everything, but it didn't really affect me like you talked about how it did for you. And it wasn't until the beginning of us recording right now when you said how I feel about Michael Keaton Batman is how this is, for you. You were 10 years old when the first X-Men movie came out, and I was like, I get it now. Like, yes, this if I had watched Michael Keaton play Batman for 17 years and then he had a death scene at the end of the film, I probably would be bawling my eyes out in the theater too, So I get it.
Like I wasn't bawling.
I was 7 years old.
Like,
sure, I was 7 years old.
I had the Denzel Washington tear. The one tear that came out in glory.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Yeah. And it's such a great way to end the film. I love how she takes the cross and sets it on and angles it so that way it's an X in the ground. So good.
Yeah, that was beautiful. It was the punctuation mark on the whole scene. And the most beautiful thing about the scene was, because we spent all this time with these characters, and Professor X is pointing out like, yo, like that's you, like that's little you. Right. And you see their dynamic and how their relationship kind of grows a little bit over the movie, and when it gets to that point, you really see like, X-23 really cared about both Professor X and Logan, even having known them for such a short time. She really cared about them, and the point where everybody started sniffling, and I'm like, I mean that wholeheartedly. I heard everybody around me snotting and crying. The point where everybody started crying was when she called him daddy. Everybody was done after that.
Yeah.
And then he was like,
yeah, man.
oh, so that's what that feels like. And a lot of people think that when he says that, when he says, so that's what that feels like, a lot of people think that he means that, oh, so this is what it feels like to die. I don't think that's what he means. I think what he's saying is, so this is what it feels like to be truly loved. I don't think he ever felt truly loved.
I can see that
until that moment.
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right.
I like that. If I'm not mistaken, I think I did go see this with my fiance. So I guess, I was not trying to show those type of emotions at the time because I was just now talking to her, but I didn't cry, but I did feel the throat lump. I
the
felt
lump in your throat.
I felt the lump in my throat when the scene happened. I mean, even the events leading up to it, the fight between him and X-24, and all the kids doing what they're doing, and seeing Laura do what she does as well, and then finally get the ending scene where they're together. It's just, and I was saying, John, you guys both probably will look at it different now that you guys are fathers, So yeah. To me, this is like you said, it was a very beautiful scene, and it's a great way to end. Technically, this was the end of this character. I know everyone complains, oh my God, bringing him back makes this death doesn't mean. I'm like, the death does still mean something, regardless of him coming back as the character in Deadpool 3, at least to me. To me, this is a different Wolverine.
That's the thing about
different Wolverine.
Yeah, that's the thing about these movies and these characters, and just movies in general. Anytime they make something after the movie that you love, people tend to say, "Oh, you're ruining my childhood. You ruined
right.
Shut up! Like the movie that you love is intact. It's not gonna change. It's still there.
Right. Where's that on the shirt? You killed my childhood. Like, where's that shirt? That shirt should have been made by now.
Your childhood is not ruined. Shut up.
Yeah, exactly, man. And it's to me now, like I'm watching it, like just seeing how messed up to see Wolverine sick, like he's coughing, he's not healing. Like the scene where he literally has to pull his knife, his claw.
Oh yeah, in the beginning,
it's not detracting. He's like literally pulling it out. It's just like, man, it's like so sad to see,
Yeah, and like to see him like just be an old man, like with reading glasses, and he's being annoyed by teenagers, and it's funny, but it's sad at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
Like Wolf, he couldn't even read the label on the bottle. He was like that's ibuprofen, bro. It's funny, but it's sad.
It is kind of funny seeing Logan wearing reading glasses, but I mean, but like you said, it's it's
he was he had him on the tip, like
right, exactly. Well, all right. I think we've pretty much discussed the whole film, pretty much.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure I already know your ratings, but let's go into a rating. And how would you guys rate Logan?
You can go first, Alex.
Go ahead, John. Oh, me? Okay. Well, it's a 5 out of 5. I'm sorry, it's a 5 out of 5. Like I said, even though my small little problems, those are nitpicks. They're nitpicks. This movie is fantastic. Wolverine. I mean, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine is cemented in our minds. Like when they recast him in future movies, he's gonna be criticized regardless. Like it's just when you be a character for over 20 years, it's like who else can do this role like him? You know, Patrick Stewart was amazing. Daphne King was amazing. You know, this to me, we haven't even talked about the writing, but I think the writing is stupendous as well. You know, the way the movie is shot, I think James Mangold did a great job with the direction as well. It's a 5 out of 5.
Yeah, I agree. There's nothing more I can say. This movie is just it's beautiful. It's a beautiful, beautiful film.
It should have been nominated for Best Picture. How about we say that? It should have been nominated for Best Picture. Like, real talk.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think, you know, it's I like that it got nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay, but it should have been nominated for Best Picture as well.
Yes.
I'm right there with you. I can't say anything more than you guys did already. Like, I have a very few nitpicks about the film, but I mean, it really is nothing that's worth detracting a half star or anything from it. So 5 out of 5.
5 out of 5.
It's amazing. Well, we'd love to know what you think about Logan. What would you give it 5 stars as well? Let us know at cinemaheroes.com. You can also tweet at us or comment on our Instagram. Both handles are at CinemaHeroes. If you're watching this on YouTube, give a comment down below what you think about the movie. Give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I think that about wraps it up for this episode, though. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm Jake Stu.
I'm Alex Thomas.
As always, thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing.